All right. We are live.
Yes, we are.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Craig or Crafty from Craftworks Distillery, and the other three people on the panel tonight are, if we go to my left, is Paul McLeay, CEO of the Australian Distillers Association. G'day, Paul.
Hey, Craig. Thanks for having me on.
Good, mate. I'm glad you're here. We've got a lot to talk about. Looking forward to it.
Great.
And then in the top left on my screen is Bostic, the man who holds us all together, loves a good drink, loves a good chat, and loves to fix a bit of IT on the side, and personal consultant to me on my issues. G'day, Luke. How are you, bud?
There are some of your issues that I just can't help with.
I'm terribly strange. Thanks.
I'm good, but I'm sick, so I figured alcohol will fix that.
Right, we're about to find out.
We will.
All right, and then on the right-hand side is my good mate and my right-hand man or left-hand man, depends on how you view it, is Todd, the Todd. Craftworks, how are you, bud?
Yeah, I'm good.
What are you up to? What's happening in your world?
Just sitting here shooting the shit.
Shooting the shit, and that's what we're doing. That's it. So for those who don't know, this is a little podcast, video cast, whatever you want to call it, that we put together during COVID. We thought it was a good opportunity to get people in the industry together, have a bit of a chat, and predominantly craft distillers. But tonight, it's a little bit different. Tonight, we have Paul, who is from the Australian Distillers Association, or the ADA, as it's known. So, Paul, let's start with you, mate. But actually, before we do that, what are you drinking?
Oh, actually, I'm drinking Husk Bam Bam. Their spiced rum.
Spiced rum.
It's fantastic. So, native, obviously, they're up in Tumbalong, the northern New South Wales.
Yeah.
Most people kind of know Husk with their purple gin. The
ink gin, yes.
Gin. So same family.
Yep.
Beautiful product, and this lovely spiced rum is magnificent. It's if not the best rum on the market. But I am a little bit low, so I do have a backup of a bit of old-fashioned Bundaberg, because once I start rum, and I also like. I'm not sure if you've tried it. Have you tried the Long Ray's dark soda?
Yeah,
I have.
Good stuff.
I don't know. This is a game changer product, right? Like when we think whiskey and rum, it's like with either straight on the rocks. If you want to mix it, you're basically with water, ginger ale, or Coke or cola, right? This is a new product, Queensland company. It is really low in calories, really light in flavour. It's smoked vanilla and cola nut. It's a game changer. Like, it's the best brown spirits mixer on. I really love what they've done. Australian company, and they've worked well with Australian, particularly the Queensland rum makers, to make a really beautiful product, and I think they've really captured it. So I'm having a Husk and Long Rays. It doesn't take anything away from the rums. So, and with Australian whiskies as well. Nothing overpowering, really light in calories. Great job.
It is amazing. Yeah. When I first tried that, I think Crafty and I tried it at the same time. We were at a new bar that opened up just down the road from us in Helston Park, and he's going to kill me that I've forgotten his name, but it's the cold and flu meds. That's the only reason I've forgotten. But I remember he gave us a taster of the dark soda there, and oh my god, I don't like mixers with whiskey generally, but holy hell, that was good. It's the Long Rays. We just had a question come through from Proceed. What's the name of the soda? It's the Long Rays
dark soda.
Dark soda.
Dark soda.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm calling it brown soda for a while. That's not right. It's dark soda. Brown soda doesn't make it sound nice, but
it is really good stuff.
Yeah. And all this Great.
easy to like that.
Shiv and his
Very
team.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
Well,
also all the other mixes, like some tonics and but really low sugar stuff, really none overpowering. And they're not, all their mixes are really light, made to bring out the spirit as opposed to making the mixer, which is, I think is respectful, courteous to the industry. And, it's gorgeous.
Yeah,
but it's funny, isn't it? I was kind of like, oh no, here we go. Gave me something to ruin my whiskey or my rum. I was like, ooh, I like what you've done there.
It takes it to a whole nother dimension that is I was not expecting. I was expecting a very much like a Johnny Red and Coke type scenario where it's just sickly sweet and revolting. Not my flavor profile. I'm like, oh, that's really good.
No, it works. It works really well. In fact, I wish they had one now because I'm on a rum tonight.
Oh, good. Oh, beautiful.
Yep, on the Aisling rum. So I'm getting to the end of this bottle, and it's cold night. So it's the Riverina rum Shiraz cask, single release. So that's my drop. What are you on, Todd? What are you drinking?
Well, I'm going to start off with this one, the Chief Sons.
Chief Son,
Yeah.
Now,
I mean,
you picked that up when after the ADO conference?
oh yeah, I picked it up at the our tour out Mornington Peninsula.
Nice.
And then we went, and we'll finish off with this tonight. So it's Blackgate BG 95.
Very nice.
So it's smoky.
nice. Bourbon cask peated from memory.
Yeah. So this is I think this is the cask strength one. It's not the blend that they did.
Yeah, we were at the Blackgate World Whiskey Day festivities. When was it, Todd? 2 weeks ago, wasn't it?
About 2 weeks ago, yeah.
2 weeks ago, and it was a great night. A few distillers there, and just lovers of the spirit, and the Australian product went over really well. Everyone was having a good time, good music, good food, and good spirits, weren't they?
Oh, it was. Best place to be for an election night, I must say.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, with no reception.
There was a moment of silence for a good 24 hours. It was great.
Oh, the count was riveting, though. It was riveting.
Yes. It was actually a very exciting night. But anyway,
oh damn! So was ours.
Needed a few drinks though, that's for sure. All right, Luke, what do you got, mate? What's in your glass?
I've just killed my bottle of the King Lake. This is the O'Grady's stand, which $100 a bottle. Holy crap, it's good for $100 a bottle. It's I really don't understand how they price it at that point. Yes, it is a 500 ml, but it's 46%. It's an absolute cracker of a dram, and I'm going to order another bottle.
Yeah, I know. Yep.
So
Chantel and Sam doing some really good work.
Yeah, and then I figure I'll finish this little fella as well.
Yeah.
So a little Corowa there.
Which one's that?
I saw it on it's the XB Barrel House. So single malt aged in American oak ex-bourbon barrels. That's all it says. Yeah, and it was just a little bottle that they had on the side. I thought, I'm going to buy that. So it's good.
Nice.
It's good.
A lot of New South Wales being represented tonight. So obviously you've got your I don't know.
There's only 3 of us, so
yeah, but I mean, like spirits.
You only need 2 to pick New South Wales in there.
Yeah. I think Chief Son's the only one not from. Oh, and King Lake, obviously.
King Lake, Victoria.
King Lake, Victoria. Yep. So absolute cracker. And online, so it looks like we've got some I Am being drunk.
All right, that's another New South Wales. That's me. Yeah.
From a little no-name distillery.
In the back of nowhere. Yeah.
And the Corowa is a new experimental range. It's there's a few of them.
Right.
But I saw the little bottle. I went, I like little bottles, so I'm going to buy the little bottle. And it even came in. It even came in this wicked little
bag.
Little baggie. Now I don't know what I do with that. Now that I'm going to finish the bottle.
I was going to say mankini, but maybe not.
It's not big enough.
There's an image you don't need to see.
No. All right. Well, that's enough crap. Let's get on to it. All right, Paul. Let's start, mate. Let's start at the beginning. So before the ADA, so you're CEO of the ADA. Prior to that, where did you start, and how did you get into the industry?
Okay, so I think, look, great question. And for the record, for those that are wondering what the hell is the ADA is something that we used to call the organisation. We now don't call it ADA anymore. It's,
really? Didn't know that.
We now call ourselves Australian Distillers. And it's just branding, right? But we're the growing industry. If you're in the know and you've been to lots of conferences, you know what ADA is. But for those that are new and wanting to join and find out more about it, and someone says, you should join the ADA, and what happens is they go off and they Google, they're kind of going, was it ADA? And you just get dentists and prosthetic devices, and you get to about page 8 and you'll find Australian Distillers Association. So in order to kind of make the organisation more accessible to more people, we're just saying, well, what is it? So we're still the Australian Distillers Association, but we're just trying to say, just break the habit of saying ADA and actually just call it Australian Distillers. With that, we've had some pretty significant growth. But back to your question, I've had a background in trade unions, advocacy, member-based organisations, politics, parliament. Small known fact, I used to be the Minister for Waterways a long time ago, but through the politics and then got into governance and working with organisations on how to make sure they run more efficiently, effectively, and meet their obligations, and doing governance reviews, particularly member-based organisations. I ended up doing a few reviews for the alcohol category in the sector, and I did the liquor stores and then Japan industry bodies. And then when it came to the stage 2 or so years ago, when the Australian Distillers Association decided to do a pre-budget semester with spirits and cocktails, they said, well, what are the spirits and cocktails are the peak body for predominantly the global companies, but more and more Australian companies are joining them as well. Said, well, where's the resources to kind of support the campaign? And they said, well, we're going to hire someone, and we will hire someone, but then COVID hit and we've kind of just slowed everything down. So they said, well, can you just go and hire someone? And if worst case, we'll pay them for a few months to get through this campaign. So they went, oh, okay. And they hired me. Australian Distillers point of view, they were like, this is fine. It costs us nothing. They can pay. If you get something, you get something. If you don't, I think Stu Gregor said to the board, it's always good to gamble. It's better when he said, it's always good to gamble if it's someone else's money. So in the end, I was engaged to help. Just basically, initially it was just about a fair and sustainable tax campaign, and that's when we did engagement with members, build a campaign around running engaging members to engage with the local MPs. We had the do-gooder campaign. We had people involved in media about what is the impact of the tax, because the tax policy settings for spirits were written 20 years ago, and it was basically a fake tariff, like it was just a tax on Gordon's gin and Johnny Walker. But now, 25 years later, there's 400 Australian businesses caught up in it, and employing thousands of people. And these tax policy settings are a noose around our neck. While we're the third highest tax in the world, it's going to be a handbrake to growth. So from there, I got in, worked with Australian Distillers to coordinate a voice, and did that advocacy work direct into Canberra. Someone obviously with a governance and political background understood those cycles and the language that they like to use, and also to basically give voice to Australian distillers that were many had gone before me, and had significant successes in advocacy work around particularly people like Cam Syme and Stuart and countless others. And what we're able to do was just a better case of timing was right. We're able to get in and we're able to lift what was $100,000 rebate to a full remission to $350,000. And then when that happened, it was a case of the organisation said, "Okay, let's hire someone full time," because tax is still a very big part of their role, but there's also so many issues facing the industry, and we can't expect our volunteers to do all of it. So that's why those engaged me, and obviously I worked with Mima. And many of you viewers know Mima, who was our executive officer for 8.5 years, and so worked with her and the members, and the committee of management is one of the most generous boards you could ever work with. So a lot of time, a lot of advocacy, and a lot of work. So it was really good timing. And then building on it from there, and then do little things like run a successful conference, and most people thought it was pretty good, and it's great.
No, it was fantastic, that conference.
You must be feeling quite good about the conference then. I mean, it was obviously a well-organised conference. There was great feedback. There was great interaction, great networking. What was your takeouts of the conference?
I think it was really the hunger for people to just say, "Let's get together." Like people outside our category go, "Oh, the spirits industry was great. COVID must have been great for you." When I read in the paper, people are drinking more, and everyone thinks they're drinking more. Like that is just the biggest BS. It was an extremely tough time. There is not a spirits producer in this country that did not have devastating impact on their business, forcing them to have some structural adjustment, doing some things, and really got through. Now, obviously, consumer behaviours changed a bit. And people drink less but better, so it meant that they were willing to try other things. Some of our members were able to pivot to more online sales. Consumer behaviours changed in that they wanted grammable stuff and made that cocktails at home thing. But what it meant was, my point here is that there was a desperation for people to go, "Let's just get together. Can I talk to someone else that was in the same boat as me? Yeah. What did you get? Where are we now? And where's the future?" Right. So the future of the conference the focus of the conference was unleash the potential. So it was about let's get together, give each other a bit of love, and where's the future? So, and I just saw a note come up. Someone said it was incredible, and that was the most important thing from my point of view. Giving an incredible experience that was accessible, value for money, but really about thinking about if I can get through this, what's the future? And so that was my biggest takeout, that people wanted to get together and wanted to talk about what's next.
So talking about what is next, what was the biggest thing that you saw being raised as where the industry is going to go? And what is the next thing that the grassroots are looking at as opposed to industry body looking at? What did you find?
Okay, so I'd like to think as an industry association we're aligned with what our members would like, and I will continue to strive to ensure that we do. At the same time, I think it's also people expect myself and the board to provide some leadership as well. Of course, I think we try and get that balance right, and as a based organisation, we will only thrive if we get that dance right. I think people do expect some growth. I think there's a question mark that, often with us is June at saturation point. Can the Tassie market maintain prices? There's all these things about will it grow? Short answer is it's going to grow, right? Whilst we're at 5% of the market of spirit consumption, that being Australian craft, we're at 5%. In a continually growing pie, like even if we stayed at our point, the pie is continuing to grow. More consumers are shifting because they're drinking less alcoholic beverages than ever before, but they're drinking better quality. They're drinking slightly less frequently, but when they are, they're going, I want a premium product. So people are premiumizing. They're moving away from cask wine and boring beer and trying different things. And in doing that, they're looking for premium products to do so. They're seeing the Australian category as that premium market. So we're at a very low base. The category is going to grow full stop. Our share of that category is going to grow on top of that. Sure, there may be some consolidations and some failures, but people sometimes say, there's more distillers in Australia than there is in all of Scotland. And I say, yes, that's true. It's a great talking point, and we use it all the time in advocacy. But also, Scotland has the same population as Sydney, and Scotland has more distilleries than Sydney, right? There's 3,000 distilleries in the UK. So let's get it in perspective, right? So we are going to grow. So the most important thing is, can we grow? And there's three kind of themes with that. Can we grow, but can it be safe? Can we have? Can it be trained? There's TAFE courses in brewing and wine and all these things. Like, where is my entry level and my benchmarking when it comes to educational standards for the artisan distilling industry? And then how can I do so that in a sustainable way? So there's going to be about safer, better trained, and more sustainable. And that's what allows you to create that, maintain that quality in the Australian product, that provenance in our Australian values. So whilst we're then winning all these global awards, let's sell some of that stuff to the global customers as well. So not only are we going to have growth domestically, but then the capacity is think about over the horizon. How are we going to really take advantage of that?
And does tax is obviously one of the biggest issues for Australian distillers. A huge slice of profit goes straight to tax, and a huge wodge of the price that we're paying and that the internationals are paying obviously goes to taxes.
Yep.
There's been a bit of movement on that, and certainly one of the biggest things that we've heard since the tax reduction was, that's great, that's really helping, but we still need more. I'm assuming it's a step-by-step process. You take what you can get, and then you keep plugging away, and you take a little bit more, and you keep plugging away. Do you have a goal for where you want to get the tax rate to?
Yeah, for sure. Because it's about category shifts, and it's about when governments send different price signals, they're telling consumers what to do. So when the standard drink on cask wine is 6 cents per standard drink, and for bottled wine it's 23 cents, and for Perry it's 33, and for cider it's 35. And the fact that there's a difference between cider made of apple and cider made of pear is, strange, but tax is opaque to not just the consumer, but often the policymakers as well. It's at 35 cents for draft beer, so beer sold in and at 51 cents for packaged beer. Yet spirits, I need to lift my screen here, right? Like spirits, it's way up here at $1.15 per standard drink.
Yeah.
I say, is that because the government's saying don't drink Australian spirits? We want you to drink beer, we want you to drink wine, we want you to drink cask wine. Because if it's not, price signaling matters because it does change people's behaviour. When people are thinking, I want to shift to this, you're now pricing it out. When someone goes to the bar and someone says, can I get a whiskey and soda? And they go, yeah, that's going to be $15 or $12. And they go, I'll give me a beer, it's going to be $7. These things, right? So we need to equalise that. My view is, being the pragmatic person, is that let's just freeze our rate. And if it takes beer and wine 20 years, that's fine. But here's the thing, when we're on a higher rate than beer, and the magic of compound interest, when that 4% comes in August, beer goes up a little bit, we go up much more. And it keeps pushing us further and further away. So by the time, in 4 years' time, we'll get back twice a year. In 4 years' time, when it's $100 a wow, what's that going to mean for consumer behavior? And I just think this is just, it's going to be it's a noose that's tightening without being too dramatic. Probably that's a bad example. It's a handbrake that keeps tightening.
Yeah.
And
I can see that really putting an end to the $100 bottle.
Yeah, that's right. And that's the thing about the full remission of the 350, right? Game changer for so many distillers. Means their first couple of years are going to be. Means they'll just pay tax and business expenses and everything else like every other business, right? Like there's no special thing. We get a penalty sin tax on top, right? So if you are only producing 10 or 12,000 bottles a year, you pay all your corporate taxes and all your other taxes and GSTs, the same as everyone else. Once you get over those 10 or 12,000 bottles, then you start paying this excise. And I say the fact that when it talks about governments picking, pricingly, why is the tax on a bottle of beautiful husk rum, why is the tax on that more than a packet of Winfield Blue cigarettes? And you go, why? So you start by the premise. Why are you taxing cigarettes? Oh, because you don't want people to smoke. Okay. Why is the tax on a bottle of 4 Pillars gin higher? And you don't want people to buy Australian gin? And they go, oh no. Right. So
what powerful argument.
Like a volumetric tax, like tax is tax, right? When you get pulled over by alcohol is alcohol. When you get pulled over by the RBT, they don't go, oh, before we breath test you, we want to be drinking cask wine or tap beer or perry or cider or liqueurs because we'll give you a different RBT rate. They go, no, alcohol is alcohol. When they do standard drinks, they don't go, oh, standard drink for beer is this and what. No, it's the amount of ethanol. Why isn't tax the same? Excise should be exactly the same. Exactly. Whoever say that, exactly. Double standards, right? It's And in the past, there was no Australian voice to say this is broken. Now there's thousands of them. So employed by over 400 businesses and 2/3 of us in regional areas. So it's a very powerful voice, and it's really about capturing and harnessing that. But we will only have that credibility to have that discussion if we continue to provide quality product that is maintaining a standard and in a safe and sustainable way, and our people are trained. And that's where my focus is in the next 3 years, maintaining that.
Well, that actually leads me to, sorry, Crafty, another question that's come in from the crowd. Do you see there being a minimum standard qualification in the future?
Okay. I think before we get to a minimum, how about we get to A, right? Like not even just like a minimum standard, but actually having one that is available. There are 32 providers that provide the brewing, artisan brewing products across Australia. No one at the moment is providing the artisan, the distilling version of it. So for the last 2 years, I've been meeting with TAFEs and POs, and always when they say, what's the size of the market? What's the demand? Is it ready? And I give them the data. We've been collecting it. We did that Deloitte, the Deloitte industry analysis last year, which Spirits and Cocktails and Australian Distillers Association combined with, cost $80,000 to actually drill down how big is the industry, where is it located, and what's the standard. They're able to provide this data, and they still go, oh, yeah, great, okay, we're thinking of doing it. Thankfully, 2 things have happened. Queensland TAFE, I think they're very, very about to be ready. Queensland, there's some providers that provide, there's some great training, by the way, I should say. There's some really good training through some private providers, and you can just think of ADI and a few others that are doing some really great jobs. But there's no one doing a certificate 3 or certificate 4 or traineeship level. So whilst those business cases, those how to do this distilling, how to do these things, they're really, really good quality. But I'd really like to get it to a certified national standard. I think Queensland TAFE is going to do it. And then the other thing is this year, through the amazing grant that the Victorian government has given to the Victorian distilling industry through improvement industry capability through the distilled door grants, they're giving enough to fund an industry-owned training organization to build those standards through that national quality framework. So we can at least start by next year having, at least in Queensland and Victoria, the national quality framework at certificate 3 level. By the next year, certificate 4, and that's the kind of thing that I think we'll have New South Wales jump on board, Tassie jump on board, WA jump on board, and then at the same time, then TAFEs can come in and fill those other gaps as well. So I think within a year or two, we'll have that certificate 3. And in an industry-owned RTO, will give us also the capabilities of saying it's not just the national quality framework on the artisan, the field products. We can actually build in the IBD component and the WESET component. So it's not just a domestically standard level, it's actually a globally portable qualification. So if you're someone sitting in Italy or America and thinking, how do I become a distiller? Then why shouldn't they come to Tasmania and learn from Bill Lark and get a national and globally portable training qualification, or come to Queensland and do my work in some beautiful, like at Beenleigh or Bundaberg, and go make world-class rum, and it becomes a genuinely exportable product at that massive, at that significant standard. And these standards also are accessible, right? So when it's owned and driven by industry, it means that we get to do the modules that make sense to us. That is in a way that is responsive to industry needs, and it's done in a way that lets you have that bite-sized learning. You go, I can either work my way through it slowly or as planned, but it's got to be on a national framework. It's got to be at that national qualification level, and it's got to be done by reliable RTOs that allow us to do it. I think we're nearly there. We'll get there by the end of the year at least. I think at least 2 providers by the end of the year, and by next year I think there'll be even more. So it's good time, right? And as the industry is growing, now's the time to do it. People have got their business up and they're going, okay, now if I employ another staff member, I want to make sure they're trained. Because safety to me is like the number one, right? That's why our tool on our website, like if you go to our members portal, and if you go to the Safety and Sustainability page, the Safety and Sustainability Project Group, it really steps out. It's got the video of Adam Pinkard that they gave at the conference, which is talk about what was my takeout from the conference. If Adam Pinkard didn't give you minimum goosebumps and in many cases tears, like it was the most generous presentation. That's now on a website. Just go in, click the page, you'll view it. Then after that, he says, this is what happened to me and it could happen to you. We've then got the video of James from Ludford Smith from Becker that shows you how to explain, how to use the safety toolkit. And then there's the toolkit, and then we've got safety action and provided a checklist. And we're going to be continuing to develop that. So safety is paramount. Safety goes hand in hand with training, and then training in those, particularly at that competency level. So about skills, outputs, not just about, how do I, it's got to be about making the product, but it's also handling food standards, labeling, FSANs, all those other things. So you need to have that standard, and then you get to talk about integrity and standards, and the provenance. And now you get to go, okay, there's real value in this Australian product, and there's no one dropping it.
And how would you see that being applied to existing distillers? So that training is great for the newbies and new entries to the market, and people who want to get into the industry. But then you've got the people that have been doing it for almost a decade or more. How do they get qualified without having to go through all the qualification process? Would there be
a really good question?
Great question. So there is RPLs, and that's why having it as a proper regulated registered training authority that meeting the national quality frameworks, that if you can demonstrate those
prior learnings or
the RPL, the recognition of prior learning is if you can demonstrate the competencies. So if you can demonstrate food handling and manual handling and safety, then you don't need to sit through a 14-hour learning module and you can get it for that thing. But having said that, this is really about adult learning, right? This isn't about for 14-year-olds. It's not about doing a high school vocational gateway thing, right? This is an adult learning tool. And you might find, okay, I don't need to do my forklift lifting again, but actually I probably should do the food standards, or I might want to do, and it'll be modular based. So the certificate 3 is 18 modules. Certificate 4 is 22. That you might go, actually, I can pace my way through this. I do want to do those things. I do want to do my chalk and talk, and I want to do my, and I might not have to do the 6 hours in a distillery to, sweeping floors and that kind of thing, but I can demonstrate I've done it. And that's what you'll get that certification at the end. So it's very much focused on grown-ups, practitioners, people in the industry doing their job, running their businesses, and making it accessible for them. But then also being able to say, actually, if someone wants to come, at least enroll yourself in this program as well. But that will take time, right? Because these are cohorts of like 15 and 16 students per time. Definitely, I do see an apprenticeship eventually, but we're going to take a couple of years to get to that because there's so much demand already that when you're in cohorts of 15 and 20 or 30, there's going to be a bunch of people that want to kind of get into it to start before we start then kind of opening that way up. But yeah, we'll get to the stage where we want apprenticeships as well, because that'll give you that financial incentive to do the hiring and give you the do the course together for sure. And then if we owned it, we'll also go to do safety and if the industry owns it, why not have an RSA? If you're going to do an RSA for you're paying someone else, why wouldn't you pay the one that's owned by the industry association and get them to do the RSA? It'll be modular based. Some will be chalk and talk, and some will be online, and some will be in the workshops.
So some comments coming through there that the RPL processes are laborious and inaccurate. If you have a decade of industry experience, you won't need or want a Cert 4. However, Cert 4s are great for a start to the industry. So they do set a baseline of knowledge and understanding for anybody getting into the industry. I think that would be brilliant personally. All right, Crafty, I've interrupted you a few times.
Provided in each state, right? It's got to be an accessible kind of thing. And at the moment, and then also having those components with, and we'll get the existing providers to build into it. Like we're not going to reinvent the IBD. We're going to go to the IBD board in Australia and ADI and say, hey, you guys run this component of it, and let the students then test the qualification at the end. It's not about us. We don't. I'm a firm believer in not market disruption, right? If market is already responding, you don't need to go in and take away someone else's business. If market hasn't, and it needs that kind of industry broad thing, then we'll enter that space. But if someone's doing something really well or good, don't force yourself into that. That's a competitive market. Let them do it. It's only where there's market failure should we be intervening and then assisting in that way.
Yeah, that's a very in-depth topic. That's for sure.
Going on to something interesting, but it is so fascinating, right? It's and it'll lead to a standard because that's the you need that foundation. Because if you don't, it's one thing to talk about safety. If you don't have a mindset of, okay, here we go. Someone's saying about a foundation. Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Base standards are very important. And I guess, I mean, you can look overseas for where there aren't standards, and so the US, where you've got a lot of amateur home distillers who are maybe not adhering to the best food safety standards or safety in general standards. So having that accessible training certainly will mean that we'll have a better, stronger industry, better, stronger staffing for that industry. And yeah, we won't have people blowing up.
And if you're a home distiller, what wouldn't you do? Of course, you go, I'm still a hobby, but it's 154 hours over the next 3 weeks, the next 6 months. I can afford that.
Except that I can't do it. Except that I can't actually distill at the end of that at home.
That's right.
Do you see that changing? The legislation being changed to allow for home distillers?
Look, distilling is still a very, our alcohol content is high. It's still a very dangerous product. It is. I'm a firm believer in sensible. I'm a firm believer in sensible regulation where it's necessary. I don't believe in paring it back just for the sake of it. Sometimes it is. We have a social license to operate, and we provide we produce a product that can, if misused, cause harm. If produced badly and then misused, cause harm. So we don't have an obligation to market our products responsibly. We also have an obligation to produce them responsibly and safely, and in many cases, and I think as we get further and further, it's going to be ethically and sustainably. And I think some jurisdictions will be, Tasmania is probably the best geared ready, like just the whole state runs on hydroelectric power, right? So they'll probably be the first to be kind of a carbon neutral industry. But so I think those boundaries keep pushing, but you can't only keep pushing it if you accept that you have a social license, if you accept the obligations that come with that, and then you take it responsibly by then ensuring that your peers are keeping up with it. So we're constantly seeing people sometimes inadvertently not doing the right thing, and we as a community have to do things to police it.
That's a question.
So again, but there's a lot coming in from the audience. So sorry, Crafty, I'm going to cut you off again.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
This is also good. Has anyone got any issues with the huge uptake from small locations, like a 500 square meter domestic plot in a suburb, in a garage, as a home-based business distillery? Without the safety standards, yeah, that could be a problem.
And even more so in a domestic situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, he's referring to a legal operation, so they'll be going through all the, all their requirements from a council standpoint, from a local government standpoint, and that. So compliance. It's about compliance there, isn't it?
So Mick, you're saying they're being given approval by council or by the tax office? Like, that's one of those things about multi-levels of, it's, I think conceptually. Okay. All right. So
we might have to look into that a little bit more.
Victoria has very liberal laws, particularly around artisan producers. So it means that you can't have a bar and you can't sell, but you can sell your own product. And in fact, and Queensland is the worst, and some parts of New South Wales are bad, and those council regulations are all over the shop. I think it's better if we do have I think we do need a case of, I don't mind strong regulation, particularly around safety, because we have an industry that must maintain it. So I think that we do that compliance area around the integrity and lifting those standards. I just saw a comment, I didn't read it because I was thinking about this. I think it said
safety is very important, and they always enjoy seeing people in the ADA quickly shutting down home distillers. So,
okay. Oh, sorry. I'm glad I rephrased it because I wasn't sure. I'm not sure if it's the AD. It's not the Australian Distillers Association's job to shut down.
No.
The community kind of speaks out and says, "What are you doing?" The amount of distillers that say to me, people come in and they show me photos of their still, and I'll be thinking, "Why are you showing me that? Like, you're showing me something that is offensive to me because you're not meeting any of the rules, the licensing, the excise burdens that I'm doing. You're basically, why are you rubbing my face into your illegal operation?
You're not a distiller, you're a moonshiner.
Yeah, that's right. So, so we need to take. So if we accept that it is a social license, the burdens that come with that, then there's some standards. If we then accept there's some standards, then we got to make sure we are maintaining them and living with them. Do we have compliance wrong? This is something we're going to have. There's definitions around, particularly those technical standards, particularly around the, what is rum? If I've got the word rum on my label, it was only like a year and a half, but it tasted pretty good to me. Can I do it? I saw an ad that came out today on the Shark where it says, it's not a member of ours, but it said Australia's first mid-strength gin distillery.
Mid-strength gin distillery.
Mid-strength gin distillery. And the value proposition says, hey, don't go drinking all year and then having a month off for dry July. Drink moderately throughout the year and have your mid-strength gin. According to the definitions within the Excise Act, you can't say the word gin unless it's 37% alcohol.
Yeah.
So how can you be a mid-strength gin distillery? You're a distillery that's producing a mid-strength distilled product, but you can't use that GIN word. And so then we get out ourselves, well, where do we get the compliance, right? How does Fireball market itself as cinnamon whiskey when it's
not whiskey?
Yeah, it's 32%, 33%. It's not whiskey. How do they get to the name whiskey on their label? How did Shane Warne, RIP, sorry.
Rest in peace, Warnie. Yeah, with his 23 mid-strength G&T cans.
Yeah, because his number was 23, so it comes out at 23%, and it's marketed to women to go, it's a low alcohol option, right? But you can't say it's gin, because it's not gin. It's not a spirit. We have a new, they like to call it a classification. I'm not sure of the classification yet. They're saying, the non-aged spirits. I don't think there is such a thing as non-aged spirits. It's not a category as far as I'm concerned. There's people producing non-aged spirits. But what happens when they call it things like, it's a malt, but they're not using the word whiskey, but they're using other tag words in there that from the consumer, it implies it's a whiskey.
Okay, yeah.
But they've never used the word whiskey, and they don't. They're very careful about that, and they're in fact not very careful. They don't use it, but are they using other language that a consumer thinks, oh, this is obviously whiskey, and wow, my God, it's amazing, and it's so cheap. It's because they've miraculously aged it in 3 months. And I think it's healthy to have that discussion, right? We need to, because otherwise, we as an industry, particularly, last Thursday we were 30 years old. Obviously, Beamley was Australia's oldest craft distiller. Bundaberg have been going for over 100 years. There's others, but the modern craft distilling, what happened when Bill and Lynn Lark opened their distillery 30 years ago last Thursday. Down in Tassie. It was the first distillery in Tasmania for 158 years. And then there's a few of us that have, of you that have come since. What are we, as a modern industry? I like the fact that our definition of whiskey is in 3 sentences, whereas in Scotland, they have the Scotch Whisky Act. So it's like 3,500 words. I like the fact that we have a very cavalier, what we sell as gin in Australia would never pass muster in, there's some gins I have which I love, and I don't feel a predominance of juniper. Some Australian gins have so much lemon myrtle that I don't sense the juniper there, but I don't have predominance of it.
So do you think that actually affects then the international marketability of an Australian spirit? If if it doesn't conform to those
Good point.
existing standards, international standards?
So I think if you were to produce let's say a beautiful product like a husk, like an ink gin, right, with that beautiful purple, with that
Butterfly pea.
butterfly pea, thank you, and then you add the tonic and the pH levels change and it swims from this purple to this beautiful pink. If they put a label London Dry, I think the international community might go, hold on, I don't get it, right? Like that Karoo Lightning gin, which to my mind is the most amazing.
Here's what I prepared earlier.
That when you pour it into your glass and over ice, that first tip tastes different to the next one. Is the most sophisticated and changing and dynamic gin. That by the one you get to the bottom, it's not that your mouth has changed, the product has changed. With that subtle melting of the ice and a little bit of water, it is well. If you went and said, "Oh, this is a London Dry gin," the international community go, "What are you talking about?" They market it as a contemporary gin from Australia. We go, "Okay, I want to try that." And that's a gin, right? Gin is so, it's not just Gordon and Bombay and Vickers anymore. Like the consumer tastes have changed. It's like saying there's dinner ale and KB, and now you have this whole craft beer explosion. They're saying it's got to be more than just VB and 2 is new. And gin allows you to do that in a way that other products don't necessarily, or certainly as much, at the volume or at the levels as quickly. But what will affect us is if we do drop quality standards and that integrity. And in fact, if we are to maintain the value of our products, particularly our brown spirits, and our brown spirits are really the economic powerhouse, right? It's our white spirits, there's more volume and more money, but economics really come to the fore in our brown spirits because of that extra investment and the value capture. Like you can't charge $2,500 for a bottle of gin, and I don't care who you are. But if it's Tasmanian whiskey, in order to maintain that value, you must maintain the integrity. You must maintain those technical standards. You must be able to have a provenance story behind it. And if you don't, you'll let down, not just devalue your product, you'll actually devalue an industry in an incredibly irresponsible way. So how do we as an industry, how far do we push that enforcement? And then do we ask for some more regulation? As loath as we are, because it should be about self-regulation. And when you got 20 or 30 producers and a bit of peer pressure, you can do it. But we're now at 400. And every time I blink, there's a new distiller, which is fantastic because, as I've said, the growth is way off. The growth capacity is significant. And then when you add in export potential, because people love Australian products, particularly post-COVID, particularly with our geographical products, it is genuinely, you make it, you will sell it. Obviously selling it's harder than making it. What I mean is there's capacity for our products if it's produced and done properly, and if it's got integrity.
And backing that up, Prestige Liquid says, saying, working in a liquor store, it's amazing to see how familiar customers are with Aussie gin distilleries. Absolutely.
Yeah, the education side of it. It's incredible, isn't it?
So just think about that, right?
Consumers' knowledge now.
Think about a liquor store 30 years ago. It was the French, Italian, and eventually go to the back, and there were the Aussie wines. Half of it was in boxes, casks. The other half there was some other. Going to today, the categories are by style, grape, color, price, flavor points, then price points. Then, by the way, eventually you can go back to find some international wines. Spirits, section of liquor stores are growing by between 8 and 10% every year. This footprint of the spirit bit. And it's not just Four Pillars and Bundaberg anymore, right? The Australian spirits are taking up more and more real estate. There is no reason that the Australian spirits industry can't do what the Australian wine industry did 30 or 40 years ago. But what took them 20 or 30 years, we can do in 8 to 10 years if we're smart about it. And when that happens, it means that when we walk into a liquor store in 2035, we still exist and we haven't been in any state to shut us all down, but if there is still a liquor store, the spirit section is going to be a bigger footprint because, as we know, people are drinking less they're drinking less but better.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be gins and vodkas and rums and whiskies. And then you're going to go, oh, but hold on, no, actually, I want a Scotch whiskey. And there'll always be a spot for Irish whiskey and London dry gin and bourbon whiskey and Caribbean rum. But in fact, the first 20 shelves are all going to be Australian products at different categories and price points. Because that's what the wine industry were able to do when they focused and lifted their standards and really put effort in. And it took them 25, 30 years to do it. We can do, because our volume is higher in there, we can do it faster. And I think even if we just get to 10% of the market, this is game changing for us. But it's also an interesting dynamic. I'll tell you another thing. One of the stats that surprised me the most is 80% of the spirits and drinks that are sold in Australia is actually manufactured in Australia. And you go, that sounds like BS, right? The RTD category is very fast growing. They're not shipping cans of 95% water across the seas, right? It's coming out in bulk. It's all with Australian limes, Australian sugar, Australian water, creating Australian jobs. Every RTD is made here. 7% of it is the base spirit that comes in under weight. The rest is all Aussie jobs. Some of Australia's largest selling vodka, and I won't name their brand, but you can probably guess which one, is made right here in New South Wales wheat, down on the south coast, and bottled here, and maybe a Russian brand owned by an English company, and New South Wales, but it's then exported to America. You're seeing an American drinking a Exxon dry lime. It's in Australia. These things are all here. We pick up a bottle of Johnny Red. It says bottled in Australia. The industry it's not as it's more dynamic than we think, right? It's and these people don't have just as much to gain as having a contemporary, responsible, supportive Australian industry. Like one of the speakers at our conference was Brian Fry, the managing director of Pernod Ricard. We know them mainly in Australia through their wine brands, but they're actually internationally just a spirits brand. And he said to me one day, the economics in Australia don't make any sense. But every other country we go to, the domestic market is at least 3%. At least. In Australia, it's 4 or 5, and you take a Bundaberg and drop to 2. He said that means that the spirits industry has no voice in government, no champions. And he said, well, what do we as the global players do to help grow your industry? Because we want to get to 10% because that's what the benchmark we're used to. Once you get to 15% of the category, then we might start to have some competitive tension. But until then, it's in our interest to see you grow and thrive and make your products and you delight your customers. Because every time that someone falls in love with a beautiful craft drink, they walk into a bar and say, "Hi, I would insist on my my Melbourne Gin Company for my gin and tonic." And they say, "Oh, I'm sorry, we don't stock that." So what happens is they go from going. So what happens traditionally in Australia, right? Australians, when they walk into a pub, they know what beer they're going to order before they've even walked in. Generally, some people are dickheads and go, "What have you got?" I mean, maybe I'm sorry, I'm sure you know. Some people know what they're going to order.
Then you get pissed off when you go into that pub and they don't have your beer.
So you don't go to that club again, right? Like,
Yeah, that's it. You go somewhere else.
so then they order their wine from the list. Yeah, but for some reason, when they say, "Oh, I'm like," they go, "I have a gin and tonic. I have a scotch and soda. I have a bourbon and coke." And even if somebody go, "Which do you prefer?" They go, "Yeah." So that's the point that Brian makes. He says, every other jurisdiction, Australians are the only ones that order gin and tonics, bourbon and cokes, scotch and sodas. There is no consumer in any other country that orders their drinks like that. They say, "I'll have a Hendrix and tonic. I'll have a Jack and Cola. I'll have a turkey and dry." Like, he said, Australia's the only place in the world that happens. And it's because they have brand loyalty. And because our product is such a tiny component, and we get pushed around and bullied. Well, this is not his argument. This is my argument. Why we're doing it is because we get pushed around by our big boring beer barons and our big boring clubs that say this is how you should buy your stuff, because they've got four agreements that treat the consumers like garbage. When they start falling in love with the product, and this is why it's in the Why does Spirits and Cocktails Australia, which is basically the global company, why do they fund our industry so much? Because they go, every time someone falls in love with a craft product, they go into a bar and say, "I'll now have," in this example, Melbourne gin and tonic. They go in and have that. All of a sudden, they've gone from a gin and tonic drinker to, "Oh, well, I'm now a premium provider." So they go, "Do you want a house gin?" They go, "No, I want a Tanqueray or I want a Bombay." And that's, for them, that's why they make their money. So they go, fall in love with Australian craft, because it means people will step up and they make more money from that. And I said to you, good. Everyone wins, particularly the consumer.
Yeah, definitely. Do you want to slip in a question, Crafty, before I progress on to another audience question?
Yeah, I was just going to bring up, you mentioned before we went online that you're off to Ireland and Scotland soon. Yeah. It's part of the Australian Distillers. Give us a bit of a background on that, and what's that trip about, and where do you see those sort of trips going in the future?
Yeah, great. So here's the thing. When we struggle with integrity, what does it mean? What's our destiny? Where are we? Sometimes it's good to go, let's go back and talk to the originals, right? So at the conference, you may remember Greg Holland from Spirits and Cocktails spoke about him speaking at Spirits Europe, the international experience. And he's going to the Spirits Europe conference to give a presentation about working with globals. And he said, and if there's any Australian distillers that would like to come, let me know and we'll put together a delegation. To which I was outside at the time because it was a big conference to organise. And someone said, "Hey, can you tell me about this delegation you're putting together for Europe?" And I was like, "Oh, Greg, what have you done?" But so we basically just said, so Greg and I are presenting at this Spirits Europe conference. Said to them about what are the issues, integrity, tax, working together. And they said, if you're coming, can you bring if you put together a few people, we'll organise some tours, right? So I then put a note out to all the members. I only did one, which was a bit cheeky of me, and I do apologise if you missed it and you really want to know about it, but we've got 15 expressions of interest. We're now got 13 coming. We leave next Thursday. We're going to Belfast first and 3 days with the Irish Drinks Island. Yeah, exactly. So someone said you do have to pay for yourself, right? It's not a subsidised thing. You got to pay, but it gives you access to. We're literally having 3 days in Dublin, 3 days in Edinburgh, in Dublin, Belfast, then Dublin, then Edinburgh, and then 3 days in the Highlands. and meeting with, Roe & Co. and Kilbeggan, which is the oldest conveniently operating distillery in the world. And we're meeting with the head distiller and the head brewer and the head of marketing to say, this is what we do, this is our brand, this is why we do it. We're having open round tables with the Scotch Whisky Association about why is there value in having Scotch whisky? Why do you have your 5 standards? How do you maintain that integrity and that value? What do you do for compliance of it? Like, what do you do to police it? How much do you need to invest in it? And what do your members value in you being that kind of global policeman for what is whiskey? Meeting with the Irish Whisky Association to say, what is Irish whiskey? What's the value of it? How do you maintain that? Particularly, you got Scotch up here. How does Irish whiskey maintain that value? And what do they need to do to maintain that value? And then how do they capture that that integrity and those technical standards and that geographical indicating? Is there a value in that GI, that geographical indicator? Because as we move to, is Tasmania whiskey worth geographically indicating? Is Queensland rum? Is Victoria gin? Those kind of questions. So we've got more than a dozen strain distillers coming. You do have to pay your own way, so it's $7,000 plus your airfares, but that then covers all your accommodation, every meal, all your ground transfers, and everything from reception at the Irish ambassadors, the ambassador to Ireland, Gary Gray, who will have the head of Tearlings and the head of the 4 major buyers and the opportunities to talk about what's your product and where is it and where's it going. And it'll be 18 days and then we'll come back. So this one was a bit rushed. Realizing that there was an appetite for it and that people were saying, yes, it's something that I'm interested in, it signals to me that I will organize another one for later in the year for America, and it'll be in relation with the Discus conference, so you can actually get that Distilled Spirits Industry Council of the US or the American Distillers Institute or something. Like, we'll link it into a conference that you can get that learning from, and then go visit those distilleries. And it'll be a product that, to answer Jonathan's question, it'll be something that we'll be able to run every year. And whether it's America one year, UK the next, I think there's certainly appetite for people to do it. And then on top of that, I'd also like to work with some of those global companies about then having some sponsorships as well, to say, can you have an innovative distiller or someone that's doing something really interesting, or maybe the Women Distillers of Australia, or, someone's having, some capacity to have some sponsored positions as well. So those that have the capacity to pay can pay. And those that don't have the capacity but really want to will pay. And for those that have absolutely no chance, there will be others that will be able to pick up those capacities. So I want to build those sponsorships and those fellowships. We've already had some discussions with the independent stave company, who's having a different fellowship potentially for over to Louisville. So that's one of the things we're working on. Having those products, having those opportunities available for those that can do it, but should be fun.
Yeah.
It's all work. I'm having to lead it up. There'll be no fun for me. It's just.
Oh yeah. Look, it's a
it's
job.
Sure, it's quite a good
And
job.
in many cases,
Has to do it.
Yeah.
It's,
A really interesting comment. A really
Yeah.
interesting comment came in very early on that I just need to flash up on the screen here.
unfortunately, yes.
Change yourself.
I'm switching into winter mode. It's freaking cold. I'm in the shed. So, and I've got my big ass glasses. So, yes, it all contributes, of course.
We hadn't even gotten to the glasses yet.
No, you're the one that raised them tonight, not us.
Now, Mike has also asked about a rumble he heard that the new government will drop the rebate back to 100K. Have you heard anything about that?
What I'd say first is, I think we do have a responsibility to be able to talk about question those things. I don't think it's fair to say I've heard a rumble that they're going to do it if you haven't heard a rumble from anyone that is actually have any credibility in it. So you can say, are they going to drop it down? I think it's a bit disingenuous to say I've heard a rumble that they're going to drop it. I certainly have not heard any rumbles that they're going to be dropping it. So I'll just be mindful just about the language because it is sensitive. Like the rebate, and it's not a rebate, by the way, it's full remission. It's in a budget every year. So basically the law says you pay tax at this rate for this product. Every year, the government says, we're going to give you the rebate or full remission at certain rates if you pass certain tests. The interesting thing about now that we've aligned it to 350, wine last year, the wet was a higher rate because wet came in, so which is the wine equalisation taxes for wine. So the only people that pay excise is fuel, tobacco, and some alcohol. And that some alcohol is beer and spirits. Beer don't pay it on their first 1.5%. So they get like a bit of a lift before they start. And then they have a much lower rate than us. We pay it from everything that's produced in the moment it leaves your bond, whether or not you've been paid for it or not, right? So, you may have 60-day terms. They go, we don't care, pay the rebate now. And then, particularly some of your products that may sit on the shelf for a long time, some of your suppliers may go, why would I want to pay you now? Can I have 90-day terms or can I pay in consignment? Even if you have consignment arrangements, you still got to pay it straight away. Mm-hmm. But hold on, back to the point. Wine used to have a higher thing, the wet, and then brought down, and 2 years ago it was at 500,000. Beer, wine, and spirits are now at 350. So all of us are on the same playing field.
Right.
If it was to drop to 100,000, they would have a fight with every wine grower, every small wine grower, every craft brewer, and every craft distiller in the country. It is very unlikely, now that we've got that parity between the three producers.
And speak as one voice, yeah.
Yeah. So there's always pressure from, government and treasury to go, like it's one of those things. It's a lot of money, right? Like it's $225 million over the forward estimates. But when you work it down, you go, actually, well, how much is that? Divide that by 5. So just this year, that's 40 million. You go, and beer versus spirits, what's the percentage? You go, oh, actually, this looks like a $25 million industry incentive, the spirits industry. Yet the last CPI increase took back $80 million from our category. So it's like 25, they take back 85 3 months later, right? So they know that it's not a structural problematic to maintain that threshold. I'm mindful about the notion of should we push to increase the threshold even further. And certainly we do want to give every advantage we can, but part of me thinks you don't want people harvesting rebates. We really need structural adjustment within the whole category. Whilst we're the third highest, it just means that small players are going to get that tax freeness. But it's just, as soon as you've sold more than 15,000 bottles, your business is broken. So that's the really significant change, because otherwise we'll still just be 400 micro businesses, not actually businesses that actually are running profitable, employing people, capturing the consumer changes. And it's the headline rate I'm really, really focused on. I want to continue to get, maintain that 350 remission. I want to look at further industry incentive plans like melted manufacturing grants, I didn't mean to suggest that it was dodgy, but it was a good. But I just want to be careful. Tax is really important to our industry, right? People are watching; they're very careful. We work really hard to make sure that we don't get it wrong and that it's about the right signalling for us. Right? I'd like to see what we, the category, are pushing for in the next, the new government is to say, what is the scope, scale, and size of the industry? Can we have a government inquiry into what is contemporary Australian spirits category? Like the wine industry did 30 years ago and set up Wine Australia. When there's this amount of jobs, these places, these are the skill level, this is the gender mix and the whatever mix, and this is the contribution they're providing to the economy. What do we as a government and policymakers need to do to allow them to thrive and not hold them back? And that's what we're really significantly pushing for this. And we would have, I'm quite confident we would have had in the last government if they had been re-elected. They've really showed a lot of things. And the new government, we've spent a lot of time working very closely with them. When there's a change of government, you kind of got to re-educate and get them going again. But it's not going to slow us down. And we have some key people. In fact, there's a distiller. The new member for Hasluck is a distiller. So she was at the Australian Distillers Conference. You've got introduced, goes, "Oh, hi, I'm the candidate for Hasluck." I was like, "What are you doing here? Shouldn't you be campaigning?" And she's like, "I should, but I also run a distillery, and this is my husband, and she's an amazing, amazing person, and will make a fantastic member of parliament." But those policy levers are around about having responsible, real growth, not sugar hits, and about and also. I know I'm a bit rambling now, but I don't like when governments pick winners. Like grants shouldn't be about here's $10 million for you, or here's $5 million for you, or $3 million for you. Because what happens if you're the person next to you?
Yeah.
They go, well,
what about me?
That's not fair. Like they should be about lifting all boats, right? It should be about industry. That's why the educational thing. That's why Victoria, they give the grants in Victoria, the $10 million fund in Victoria is so much more different to the modern manufacturing grant. And modern manufacturing grant is an important grant and it rewards innovation. And if you can demonstrate it, it's a very contestable product. And I can assure you, for the few winners that were able to get significant grants, there are many, many, many that provided really comprehensive business plans that weren't successful. And it cost them a lot of money to put in each of those applications. But this is what happens when you have those grants that are based on picking winners. And I, as a preference, prefer all boats that are about safety, training, sustainability, education, and accessible grants that maybe the rate is lower, but your guarantee of success is higher if you can demonstrate you're meeting government commitments. So back to the next question. Do I think it's going to drop below 350? No, I don't. Do I think the new government will meet the former coalition government's promise of increasing what was the cellar door grant to distillery doors to distillers and brewers? I'm hoping we're going to get that in. And then I'm also hoping that we're going to get some funding for extending the blockchain pilot that was ran, which is it's just really a story for another day, but I hope we get some funding for that to get some transparency in the way that tax is collected and produced, and making it easier for craft distillers to just their tax to become just a thing that is just done by the robots. And so that's what I'm really hoping for. So I'm not expecting it to drop. Having said that, it can at any time, but
Unlikely.
But it's unlikely if we have no voice.
Yeah.
If we didn't give a fuck and no one joined the association, and no one was able to demonstrate that we can organise and get our press involved and do those things, sure, they'd take it away like that. It's $25 million I'd love. If we maintain our activism, make sure everyone's a member, sign up, participate, come to our conferences, invite them to the conference. They go far out, look at the size of you guys. Invite your local members of parliament to your distilleries. Tell them that you've got a new release. Don't send them a bottle or anything. Like, they don't need that stuff. But let them know you're here, and that's the magic.
And certainly the programs that you're looking at with the training and education side of things will help to, I guess, give more leverage to you as well, to say we are training and meeting those minimum safety requirements and all those things. We've got our certificates in distilling and whatnot, where we're putting in place all of these things as an industry that will then allow the government to, I guess, have more faith that it's worthwhile pursuing.
If you don't, and here's the thing, what our industry does is turns up. We're producers, right? We are manufacturing. Manufacturing is dying around the country.
Yeah.
We're all manufacturers.
Mm.
And it is a genuine farm. We're working with our farmers. We're getting our botanicals and our wheats and then we're looking within the supply chain. We are telling a ferociously local story, and as artisan producers, we're providing honeypots to people are coming around us. Like there's bread makers and honey makers and artisan butchers that are turning up to be near us. And the wineries have to do it where the rain falls, right? We can actually do it in a much more portable way. And then the value, we take $300 a ton worth of grain and turn into $30,000 a ton worth of excise. Like they want to see us thrive in what we do. And as long as we do it in a way that is mature, responsible, it doesn't have to be mature, right? Because they know we're nascent. They know we are still learning. And in many ways, they go, actually choose us to jump on that situation where if you are open to, let us assist in a way that meets. And when I say government government objectives are usually community objectives. Government doesn't go, there's a big national, international government. It's about meeting social, your social license to operate in a responsible way that doesn't steal from consumers, that gives them what they expect they're asking for, and in a way that allows you to, that allows them to celebrate. They go, yeah, let's be proud of what it is that, let's make. Everyone's heard of this brand. Let's make this brand just as popular in Australian consumers' minds.
So there's also the tourism aspect of it as well, too, isn't it, Paul? That's a huge draw card as far as potential revenue, and the government can see that it's tourism and wineries go hand in hand, and distillers and tourism can go hand in hand. So there's good dollars to capture there for government.
Craig, I don't know of an industry besides uranium that has a higher value add for the thing that they take out of the ground to sell to the consumer that then provides other associated.
We're one below uranium.
Another little.
And arguably, spirits are a lot less explodey.
I think so. Like it's like it genuinely, and people are also becoming ferociously local, right? I'm sure, Craig. People say to you as a distiller, where did you get the, your single malt? Where do you get your malt from? Where do you get your barley?
Yeah.
Where's it? Like they want it. They want
to know more. They want to know more.
And that's one of the things that we've certainly observed in all the conversations that we've had with Australian producers is they are all using and promoting Australian product, Australian sourced, Australian grown, Australian owned. So all of that money that is being spent in producing the product is staying in the country.
Yep.
And then the money that is spent buying the product is also staying in the country and coming back to the country. So I think from an economic powerhouse, it's a no-brainer really to support the growth of that.
Yeah, from the farm, glass is a very job-heavy supply chain.
Yes.
Very. Very job heavy. So I can see there's a question there that says, don't push things to the consumer. It's not the consumer's job. It's your job. Like your job is to tell the consumer about how good your product is. And then as long as it tastes good, then they might be willing to retell it. And if it tastes good and it has integrity and it's consistent and it's reliable and it's at a good price point, then they'll tell your story. But don't push it to them. The onus is on us as an industry to tell our story. It's not on anyone else. It's not on the consumer or someone else in the supply chain or the farmer or government or MP. It's on us. And that's why we've spent a couple of years getting more organized. Some things take time. Like the members portal on our website is, from a consumer perspective, it's just a website, right? Like you go on and go AustralianDistillers.org.au. Oh, thank you. And you can see it. Oh, wow, it's just a website. Okay, you have a conference, you have a thing, okay, how do I join? The most important thing is, how do I join? It's got to be the most affordable industry association you'll ever join. And if you think the money's a lot, I'd recommend look at other industry associations, and you'll be quite surprised at how comparatively it is affordable. And the value you get from that when you go to that members portal, and you get to see the resources that are there, and those safety toolkit alone that is worth $30,000 you get for your $1,000 a year. You get access to the conference. You'll get access to as we populate that members portal, our members resources, you'll see that. But most importantly, it's the industry association that's doing the heavy lifting. And then you can come back, and once a year, you can also come to our conference, which I think as we started this dance earlier today, was probably the best value, most interesting, and most fun industry conference you could ever be to. And I spent the first half of the week in Canberra because there's a new government, a new ministry, and caucus meetings and things. But then I spent the second half in the last 2 days in Melbourne looking at potential sites for our next conference, because we know how important it is as an industry to get together, to give a conference that allows people to do their networking, and then to talk about what is the future of the industry in a way that is productive, accessible, and meaningful, right? So, and when I say accessible, I mean it's got to be affordable. So sometimes people say, "Oh, should we have it in Perth or Darwin?" I say, "Yeah, sure, that'd be lovely." But unless there's a Jetstar flight to get there, and you can stay in an Airbnb, you're excluding half your membership. So it'll be in Melbourne. We can do mid-year conferences on technical standards or something more interesting, something interesting and deep diving in exotic locations. But our general get-together should be at the cheapest place I can get to, and drive there if I want to, and maybe do a tour on the way to get there. But it's got to be Jetstar flights and Ibis hotels. So that means for the next couple of years, it's going to be Melbourne, Sydney, maybe Gold Coast or Brisbane, and then it'll be up to where most of our sponsors are happiest to provide it. Because when I did the consumer feedback from the last conference and said, "Did you think it was value for money?" People said yes, generally. There's a few that said, "No, I didn't think so." And for them, I think, well,
what did you expect? Yeah.
$500 with booze alone, then that's shame. I don't know how anyone didn't find it was value for money, but that's but it's a case of going, how do you make sure that everything we do is member focused and members accessible, and give people the chance to go, how do I participate? Because it's the participation that moves the dial on the radar, particularly when we do our engagement.
So when do you think the next conference will be? Is it going to be an annual thing or a biannual thing, or what are you
It'll be annual. One of the questions we asked was, we used to do it in October, and it used to be the AGM, so our annual general meeting, and the conference at the same time. Because of COVID, pushed it off. Then with COVID, we then had the annual general meeting in October, and it was a Zoom meeting, so similar format to this, but not as entertaining. And then we had our conference in April. So in our survey, we asked people afterwards, do you want them still split? Or do you want the AGM at the conference? The majority, 65 to 35, said keep it split. Like, keep the important, but not so dynamic, but important stuff online and in capacity. I think people liked at the conference. We then had that open mic session at the end, which wasn't quite like an AGM kind of discussion point, but it was certainly a free-flowing. And we're all prepared for Crafty to drop several more tough questions, and he didn't. So he big wink out of the open mic session.
You let us down, Crafty.
There
was a lot of tough questions there.
Cheat sheets. We were waiting for it, and then
Just next time, just feed him a list of tough questions that you really want.
Good over there. We were waiting for him. And he said he was nice. He was very constructive. He's like, so we will do it annually. We asked people, is April a good time? And they said it's much better than October. October was lead up to biggest time of the year.
Yeah.
There was a few producers that like in the Southern Highlands and things that they go, this is actually the lead up to autumn or something. So it was kind of a bit strange for them. Whereas, and I get that, it will never be a perfect time for anyone. About 30% that came said, I don't care when it is. Like, just do whatever you want. Like, it doesn't matter. We'll make time. But so I think we're going to look back at end of March or April. Next year, Easter falls like on the 9th of April. So it kind of marks with a bit, and AFL starts. And if we do it in Melbourne, we also be mindful of the last weekend in April will be Formula One. So there's a bunch of things you've got to keep in mind. But I think we'll go back to April or end of March or April. It'll be either Sydney, Melbourne, or Gold Coast. It'll be around that same price point, like 500, 550 a ticket, but that gives you a reception. So Sunday night, full day Monday, and regional tours. I hope we'll get just as many sponsors, if not more, because one of the things that people did tell us, they wanted to see what are the industry suppliers doing. Like they said, who are the barrel brokers? Who are the insurance companies? What are the IMSs I should be using? What are these things? But in the meantime, between now and
there's definitely an area that I'm looking forward to seeing growing over the future years.
And speaking of
timing of the sponsors, so we discovered them quite late in the conference, and
because it's not sponsors, right? They're actually industry providers, right?
The providers, yeah. So
yeah.
Standing out there by the lonesomes, and it would be nice to see a few more of them come in.
And they've been with us from the beginning, right? So they're like all the sponsors are supply chain professionals, and it's like almost a trade show. So we're going to change that. This year's conference was very bit too heavy in content. Next year's we'll make it a lot more accessible for more networking and more opportunities to engage with our industry suppliers.
Well, speaking of industry suppliers, we have sponsors who are industry suppliers, and we should definitely
one of them.
I like what you did there.
That was a good segue, Luke.
I try. See, I'm amazed I've survived this long. I think it is the alcohol most definitely, and 2 bottle kills will do that. But yeah, so barrel brokers, speaking of, Robbie, definitely you want to hit up Robbie for all your barrel needs. I believe he found you a pretty special barrel, Crafty.
Did he? Which one? Oh, yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Yeah, that one.
The one behind me, the Armagnac cask. Yes.
Have you filled that yet?
Yeah. That was filled last year, actually, December.
Oh, geez, that's old news then.
So come and talk to me in 3 or 4 years on that one.
Yeah, right. Okay. Interesting. But yes, Robbie found that for you. And he found that after just a passing conversation with you about it, I believe.
Correct.
And then he came back saying, I've found you this barrel.
Yeah.
So,
he very attentive, and he's got his feelers out there. He's well connected now. Barrel source from the US, from France, from Spain, from Portugal, and others as well as Australian.
Crafty, is that where we got our honey barrel from as well?
No, that was someone else.
That was someone else. Oh,
That was a
they're
few
not
years ago.
sponsored, I mentioned them.
Yeah. Anyway, carry on. Not a sponsor. Burns Welding Fabrication.
Burnsy. Now you got yours still from Burnsy.
Correct, I have, and many others in Australia have as well. As one of the most prolific steel builders in Australia right now.
And yes, he has said, "Don't call us; we'll call you."
Yeah.
But that's fine. Still call him.
Yeah.
Even for a chat. I'm sure he'll love it.
You like his chat, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, nothing but time, that bloke. All the time in the world. Youngie, YN Oak Cooperage.
Out of the Barossa.
Down in the Barossa. We do still need to get down there and make some barrels with him. He had, and we do. We also still have our prize for when we get to. I think we said that, was it the 800 mark? On
800.
I think we're a bit ambitious there.
I think we were really fucking ambitious there, but you never know. Like maybe we might get another 600 or so tonight. We've had a few. Come on, so yeah, if we get to 800, then we've got you can be a Cooper for a day.
Cooper for the day at YN Oak.
Yeah, that would be wicked. And of course, Andrew's just an awesome bloke who what he doesn't know about wood isn't worth knowing, really. Same goes for Transwood, just to skip down to the bottom row there. Again, another fantastic Cooper down in Tassie. Both Andrew and the guys from Transwood, we've got an episode with each of them. So feel free to go back through the back catalogue on our website, shootingtheshit.com.au, and learn all about the good woods and the bad woods and, woods in general.
The good woodiness.
Woody.
And then we got Saverglass.
And then Saverglass. Yeah, well, hold on. Let's go back up. Let's okay, Saverglass. Yes, for all your bottle requirements. Hit them up. They got bottles, they got glass, and can you save money with them? Is that the idea? That they're
premium glassware.
Premium glassware at a saver price. That's brilliant.
Yeah, there we are. That's a new tagline.
That's I missed my calling in marketing. Actually, no, I was in marketing for a little while and I got out of that. CCL labels. Crafty gets his labels from CCL, except when he's trying to print them himself on a printer that keeps on giving him drama. But that's a whole nother old man yelling at clouds.
Discussion for another day, yeah.
But CCL, certainly hit him up for your label needs. And last but not least, Wild Walgan Natural Spring Water, which is the water in all of Crafty's stuff. So you love his gin, you love his vodka, you love I Am 2. You love the Time and Wages, Bumblebee. All of those are using Wild Walgan water from New South Wales.
And now it sounds like a Craftworks plug.
Well,
and on that note,
well, no, we've had a number of comments in the chat this evening, talking about people drinking I Am and enjoying it and comparing it, saying that here we go, here's one, drinking I Am and Starwood side by side, and man, I Am is next level shit. Now, you've got to attribute a bit of that next levelness to the water.
Oh, absolutely. Water is an important factor, for sure.
We do aim to be better than shit.
I'm so glad. Shoot high. Shoot high, Todd. Aim for the fucking stars.
All right, guys, time to wrap it.
Oh, that tickled me. That really
Yeah.
tickled me.
Paul, thank you very much, my friend. It was informative, deep dive, multifaceted, and a lot of people would have learnt a lot about Australian distillers and what it's doing and where it's going, and the importance of working with government and having those good communication channels, which obviously you and others are bringing in that at a very high level, which is great for the industry. We're in solid hands there.
And I think, I really think as the industry kind of grows, right? There used to be a few kind of, Bill Lark is probably the best storyteller in business, and every time I meet him, I fall more and more in love with him every single time. I managed to spend an hour and a half on a bus with him on Thursday afternoon, which was just, how are we so lucky? But my point is, we all have a responsibility to speak up. This live stream itself doesn't make, so thank you for the contribution that the three of you make to the industry, and I do appreciate that you do it, because you're actually talking about what's important, what differentiates us. I know it's shooting the shit, but it's also shooting the shit. It's shooting the real shit, not just the fake shit. And that's what makes the category better, the industry better, consumers more aware, lifts our standards internally. And so good on you guys. So Luke, Todd, Craig, appreciate it. And as an industry, we thank you for your contribution that the three of you make. Craig, Crafty. I don't do nicknames, I always like to.
It's all right, call me Craig.
Okay.
I'll be known to be called Craig.
You support the industry, like you have Bill Lark's ethos, which is support first.
Yeah.
Someone's going to say, I love it. Support each other, learn from each other, teach each other. We have we have to lift all boats. And I think this live stream and however it then manifests as a podcast or whatever else is a contribution to that. So thank you from the industry. So well done.
Cool.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your passion. Yeah. Thank you very much, Paul, for your passion.
Yeah.
For your commitment to the industry as a whole. I'm in awe at the amount of information that you've got spinning around in your head there, and then the knowledge and quite obvious passion that you're showing for it. So it's awesome to see, and knowing that there is somebody right at the top there who is as passionate is very reassuring.
It is, and we also, like, our committee of management is the real leaders. Like that, the board that I serve is committed to the industry, and they're fantastic. So they give me extraordinary direction. Working under Steve Rogan and Cam and all that, the whole board is fantastic. So it's really good. The industry is in very strong hands.
Supportive, strong hands. It's awesome. Thank you very much. All right. So thank you, everyone, for joining us and participating in all the questions. And I think this is probably one of the least more interactive and least talkative from Crafty's side.
Yeah, I've been very quiet.
We've had.
Giving space. Provide the platform.
Absolutely. And it's
I actually thought he had frozen most of the night.
Hey, Lee, can I give you one of these jackets for, like, you give us a price? I'll send you a cap and a jacket for you to pick at random, maybe one of your viewers or something. And
wicked. Done. That'll be brilliant.
Yeah.
If you want to throw in like 3 extras as well, then like.
Okay.
Australian distillers need all the money they've got.
Yeah, that's it.
So thank you everyone for joining us. Please, if you haven't already, please join the Australian Distillers Association and get your membership in. Of course, it goes to all the good work that Paul and the team are doing to help and support the industry and see it advance. Of course, please like and subscribe to us. Follow us on all the different things: YouTube, Facebook, iTunes, Spotify. Leave a review, give us some feedback, give us some comments. Yes, we know the audio quality can be crap at times, but whatever. It's all about the content. Please join us again in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Is it going to be 2 weeks? We've done one every week for the last 3 weeks. So I mean, I don't know. Yeah, we're meant to be every 2 weeks, but we've got a lot
of people to squeeze in.
Yeah. So actually, there we go. Next Thursday, the 16th of June. Holy hell, we're at the middle of the year. We've got Robbie from Barrel Brokers.
From Barrel Brokers, yes. Yeah, so that'll be a good discussion. See what Robbie's up to. And, he's
talking about the other side of wood. Or barrels already made as opposed to making them. I think that'll be really interesting. Like and subscribe, follow, join the ADA, get your membership in. And
Australian Distillers.
Join the what? Join the
Australian Distillers. Join the AustralianDistillers.org.au.
See, I'm retraining myself.
Join us.
Yeah, it
takes time.
It does. Everyone likes an acronym though.
PLAs.
We're just lazy like that. And of course, if you are a member, get in the members portal. All your good stuff's in there. Thank you very much. We've got a lot of thank yous coming in as well. Phil, thank you. Will, thank you. And Jono, yes, of course. So thank you, everyone. Have a good evening, and we will see you again on the 16th. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.